It's my great pleasure to be here with Andrew Steer. Andrew is the president of the World Resources Institute. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So maybe you could just explain a little bit about what exactly is the World Resources Institute and how do you help engage in the climate agenda more broadly, but also working on other environmental issues.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. The World Resources Institute is a global research organization that doesn't just do research, but actually we then try to put research into action. We believe there are big choices that civilization needs to make. We look at 6 issues in particular that need to be addressed. Food, how we're going to feed 9.6 billion people in 2050 whilst reducing the carbon footprint of that. Water, how are we going to deal with the fact that water is becoming more and more scarce. Climate, what are we going to do to implement the Paris Climate Deal and more. Cities, how do we address the fact that 1 billion people every year, every decade are added to the world's cities, which can either be the solution or can be the problem. And energy, how are we going to get this incredible energy transition that's required? And finally, forests. Forests where the world's biodiversity lives. How are we going to really address that? So 6 massive global problems. And what we try to do is bring the best data, the best science. Our motto is count it, change it, scale it. We're very good at the counting. Every day we bring billions of data points off satellites to see almost every tree that's falling in the world in real time. But then we do research. But research on its own is only valuable if it then leads to change.
No, absolutely. And just picking up on those 6 topics, I mean, a lot of them are interlinked. Where climate action, if you address climate action, you also help influence the sustainable energy revolution, you protect the forests, and you conserve the water. 70% of greenhouse gas emissions do come from cities, so obviously if you work on the city level, you are solving the climate issue. And that is really the discussion here. You know, how do we innovate for climate action? So what are you taking away from this conference? What are the innovations on climate finance and climate technology that you're seeing and that are inspiring you from your presence here at the conference today?
Well, this conference is on money, on finance. Now, there's not a shortage of money in the world. There's lots of money. And it will be spent on investment. We estimate that in the next 15 years, total infrastructure, and that's roads and bridges and power plants and houses and factories, total infrastructure will be about $90 trillion, $90 trillion. That's a lot of money. That money will be found, but the question is, how will it be spent? Will it be spent in an old-fashioned way, where, for example, in our cities, we design them for automobiles rather than for human beings? Or will it be spent in a modern way, where we, for example, put in a lot more mass transit, we move towards the electrification of vehicles, we invest in renewable energy and so on? These things don't cost a lot more money. In fact, we've done a lot of analysis to show that actually they don't cost any. It's 90 trillion one way and it's basically 90 trillion the other way.
So let's just dwell in a little bit on how WRI, the World Resources Institute, actually advises countries and works with countries to help implement their NDCs, their nationally determined contributions of climate action plans.
Yeah, we work with lots of countries, and we like to work, obviously, with the ambitious ones. So one of the things that we've put together over the last few months is something called the NDC Partnership. NDCs are code word for the promises that were made, or the pledges made, or the goals that were made at Paris. So every country in the world has made these, we will do the following to address climate change by 2025 or 2030. So what we've done, together with other leaders in this space, we put together a group of 55 countries and 10 international institutions, including the World Bank and various UN agencies and so on. And these 55 are countries are committed to implement their targets in an ambitious way, and in addition to that, to learn from each other. Because it turns out that just having a target is not enough. That target has to then be put into the form of a plan that links to your overall development, has to be costed, you then need to find the money, and so on. So there's actually quite a complicated process, and many countries went to Paris in a very enthusiastic way, and they made pledges, which were good, but now they need the hard work.
It's really an exciting time, actually, to be involved in this global transition. So, seeing that you're so very much involved, we also just wanted to get a message from you for the younger generation. And for those that need to hear, what does this transition to a low-carbon, resilient future actually mean?
Wow. Well, there are big choices that are going to radically affect your generation, your children, your children's children. And the good news is that we need revolutions, and we know how to make them happen, but they're not happening. So we need a revolution in about 5 different areas. We need a revolution in the way we design our cities, so we stop saying that the automobile is king, and we say the person, the human being, is the king or the queen that needs to be invested in. We need a new way of doing food production and treating our rural economy. We need new energy systems. Each of these will require a bit of a revolution. We need, in our production, our manufacturing, to move from the current kind of take, make, waste to a more circular economy where we recycle things. And finally, we need to think about sustainable consumption, because the way we are spending our lives and spending our money at the moment, whereby we buy things, throw them away, they go in land tips, they emit huge amounts of carbon, this is not going to work.
Absolutely. So you've heard it from Andrew Steer, the director of the World Resources Institute. We have a number of revolutions we need to get excited about, get engaged on, and act upon. Continue following us live on Connect for Climate's Facebook page, and engage in the discussion with #InnovateForClimate. Thank you so very much, Andrew.
Thank you. What a pleasure. Well done.
Thank you.